Marc Bergevin. You really did that, huh? You really went out there and completely jebaited the Seattle Kraken in a move that ultimately allows you to keep not only Carey Price, but Jake Allen as well, one of the two main candidates that a lot of people were speculating could have gone to Seattle in the expansion draft. And the reason we're revisiting this entire video topic here today is because of this tweet here by Marc-Antoine Gaudin talking about what Dominic Ducharme says about Carey Price and the recovery process. Let's go ahead and bust out the Twitter over here. Dominic Ducharme says he expects Carey Price to be there from the start of training camp, if not in the days that follow. That's a really small tweet. It's really simple, really short and sweet, but the meaning behind this tweet is massive. What this means is Marc Bergevin and Carey Price themselves, this tag team that collaborated to form the optics necessary to keep Allen and Price with the Habs, they have successfully outsmarted the Kraken. Now, I know it's easy to say in the comments, oh, but Lego, when they made the announcement, they didn't really know how bad Carey Price's injury and recovery process was going to be. They had no idea, therefore, they just kind of got lucky. And I get it, that's a fair perspective to have. You could definitely say that the Montreal Canadiens were as uncertain about Carey Price and his health as the Seattle Kraken would have been, and therefore it's not really jebaiting the Kraken, it's not really outsmarting them, it's just having the cards fall into your lap in a proper way. But you know what, all the signs point to this being the most calculated risk that the Canadiens could have done. Sure, it's not like they might have outsmarted the Kraken 100%, but they forced the odds to really help them out, and they put themselves in the most favorable position to succeed if everything was to go right, which, according to this update here from Gaudin, it appears so. The reason I say that is because the entire timeline of the Carey Price exposition to Seattle, okay, that sounds really bad, my goodness. The way Carey Price was exposed to the Seattle Kraken expansion draft, the way everything went down, this was a huge play of the cards, and a lot of it was done by Carey Price himself. He was going out there and talking to the GM saying, yeah, you should probably expose me, because I'm hurt. I think you kind of know that I'm hurt, and we're in a position now where if we come out with the news that I am hurt right before the expansion draft, it's really going to throw off the Seattle Kraken and their entire plan for what they were going to do with their hockey team, because one way or another, they would most likely go out there and take either an Allen or a Price, whichever one was available. But if they all of a sudden know that one of them has the potential of not being healthy, then they would be a lot more reluctant to go out there and make that move. So it's not even just Marc Bergevin going out there and doing this, it's Carey Price himself as well, since he was the guy that pretty much brought the idea up, and Bergevin had to be like, okay, are you sure you want to do this? Wow. Okay, Carey, you can go ahead and we'll try this plan out. By the way, they had to go ahead and get permission from the league to actually expose Carey Price, because I believe the timing in which they were going to do that move was already past said deadline, and the NHL had some rules that were in place where, like, okay, the player needs to be doing this of their own volition, not because you're telling them to. I think it was from the Daily Faceoff article somewhere. Yeah, it was from like a month ago, but that was apparently the word that we got, and the NHL was like, okay, well, I guess if it fits all the rules, you guys are good to go. And we had even more updates from media people in the NHL saying that the Seattle Kraken were very, very critically thinking about this and trying to analyze whether it would be worth it to take on a Carey Price. Sure, Ron Francis is allergic to cap space, and Carey Price carries a ton of cap space. And sure, Carey Price and his health, it was a question mark at the time, so much to the point that we had these entire discussions going around as to whether or not it would not just be Shea Weber on the LTIR next year, but Carey Price as well. And so all these factors combined made for a package that Ron Francis was like, okay, it's so tough, we're not going to do it, I'm sorry. Even though Carey Price is Carey Price, and arguably one of the best goaltenders in the world today when he is on top of his game. And I guess that's the big caveat there, when he is on top of his game, because as we noted, in the most previous few seasons, Carey Price in the regular season is completely inferior to the Carey Price that we see in the playoffs. It's almost like that switch goes off in his head where he's like, okay, the games mean a lot more now, it's time to start trying. And even though the profile of this goaltender was so top of the line right here, Ron Francis and co were like, okay, the factors are too heavy in the negative direction for us to go out there and take him. Let's just take Cale Fleury instead, and we can reunite the Fleury brothers. And sure, that's what they did. It's cool. I like that. I like Hayden. I like Cale playing together. It's a nice little connection over there. Plus, with the entire brother connection reviving itself in the NHL with the Hugheses and the Joneses and the Docks, it's kind of funny how everything's working out, isn't it? But with this update right here from Godin, we have ourselves what was my biggest kind of proposal for a Montreal win come to life. Because everybody in the NHL, aside from Vegas, was forced to give up a player to Seattle. That wasn't something that you could change. You were going to give somebody up regardless. But the fact that it was Cale Fleury instead of Allen or Price is an absolute win. And we're doing this in a way where Carey Price is not really going to be missing any time during the regular season, most likely, if this tweet is correct. He will be back for the start of training camp, if not the short days that follow after training camp. You know how long training camp is, and you know how long training camp takes place before the start of the NHL season? If Carey Price returns at any point during training camp, he would most likely be available within the first, let's say, 6-7 games of the regular season. And as a result, he would be pretty much healthy. This was one of the biggest things that Seattle had to think about when deciding whether or not to take the exposed elite franchise goaltender that was right in front of them that they just had to choose, but they couldn't because of all of these insecurities. And so this bet by Bergevin and Price, it ultimately paid off. And I am so stoked to see it that Carey Price and Jake the Snake would both be back here. And I think this is a lot better than the alternative that we could have had, where Bergevin could have just traded away a first and something else to Seattle. Be like, okay, what is the price that you want to not select Jake Allen? Okay, you want a first and a prospect and whatever? Here, we'll give you that. You'll select Cale Fleury anyway because we would have protected Price, and then we'll go on our way. This bet instead allowed them to protect Jake Allen, who is pretty healthy and pretty valuable in terms of the contract and the quality of play that he has on the ice. Expose Carey Price, who had all these insecurities that eventually would work themselves out as non-factors, and keep all of their other assets too. They didn't have to make any secondary trades. They didn't have to succumb to the very big asking price that Seattle had in order for them to not select players that other teams valued. And guess what? The end result is the exact same outcome. So Bergevin, Carey Price, y'all did some work. You made a bet and it paid off. How many is that now? Marc Bergevin goes out there and he makes some crazy moves that actually end up working in his favor. I can't really recall anything in the past few years where he drastically makes a mistake in terms of players that are on the roster already going from year to year. Sure, like draft picks and that kind of stuff. That's different. That's not what I'm talking about here. But you know, like trades and contract negotiations and that stuff. He's making the bets that pay off, and, you know, it is pretty interesting to see. So, talk to me in the comments about Carey Price coming back and appearing to be healthy enough to potentially start out the regular season on a good note. He's coming back most likely at the start of training camp or sometime after the start of training camp. Either way, the entire Seattle Kraken debacle, it is done with, it's behind us, we don't have any more expansion drafts to deal with in the next few years, and Carey Price and Allen, hey, they're still on the team. Talk to me in the comments. What do you think? If you enjoyed this British Rolls 99? And bye.